Friends, hello everyone. I am glad to see you on my channel. And today we have a lesson on academic drawing. And I'm going to tell you how to draw a glass bottle. You can see my hand now. This is because I take the dimensions from the screen monitor. That is, I take, for example, the width of a bottle, measure it in height. That is, I have the whole sheet in such serifs. Now, a little later, I will tell you in more detail about the stages of construction and what I did after I built these 3 bottles. I decided to draw 3 vessels. They have different volumes, different heights, but the stages of construction for all bottles are generally the same. First, we build the central axis. First, we make serifs. Then we sort of build a central axis in each of the 3 vessels. Correlate the width with the height. Look at how many times the width of the bottle fits in its entire height and build ellipses. And after that, we will start hatching. In general, the principle of hatching, it is also absolutely the same and similar in all bottles. I have a regular Wattman. I cut this leaf out of a large paper, and it turned out to be about 4, and fixed it on the table with paper tape. I have an ash pencil, and throughout the work, I will use only 2 pencils. This is a pencil ash Kahiner and a pencil 3B, and of course, friends, I build all the objects through and through. Even if these bottles were opaque, even opaque objects we completely build through. So, and now friends, I'm going to tell you in real time how I made this composition, what ellipses are, the central axis, and so on. So friends, let me say a few words about what I did. So as you remember, in the beginning, I had my production about like this. I planned it, the central axis, that is, it was all in serifs. I first put serifs, that is, then I drew a little bit like frames, where I would have my objects, in particular 3 bottles of different shapes. And how do I measure proportionally? I take the width and see how many times it fits in height. That is, on his post, on his picture, on his statement in the photo. I take photos, measure them first, that's how much width fits in height there. Then, for example, it fits right here. I got 1 and 8. I take the width, I set it. I take the width and measure it so that it really fits 1 and 8. I'm putting a serif. Then I can measure how many times I have in the entire width. In the last video, I explained from the drawing what the width of our staging is. Let me remind you, this is the leftmost point and the rightmost point. But it's not like that here. I plan to finish painting the pebble and this iron metal thing later. But now, since these are such elements, we are now drawing 3 bottles. At the moment, the width of my statement is the leftmost face of the left bottle and the rightmost face of the right bottle. This will be the width of the production, and the lowest point, the highest point, this will be the height of our production. We are for a reporting period of some kind. Take, for example, the width of this bottle here. Although you know this is not the best moment to take. I took it, well, because I already have experience, but you can take it, for example. It's just inconvenient to measure a large size 1 and 2. I measured it like this how many times in width, but it will probably be more convenient to take a smaller one, for example this one, but then you'll have to draw first. Take your first one, your first one, as if the bottle that you outline should be this width. For example, you set its width, then you look at the statement, measure how many times the width fits. Let's see, in the entire width of the statement, 2, 3, 3, and 8. Then you take, for example, here you make a serif. Look, 1, 2, 3, 3, and 8. That's how a comfortable distance turns out. Here is the distance, and here, from the beginning of the corner to this bottle, and from this bottle to this bottle. We should have the same distance left. That is, we measure it for this. We look to make it fit into our sheet. Then we look at how much height. We take the width of this bottle. We look at how many times it fits 1, 2, 3, and 3.5. To the very top point, yes, 3.5. So we take this width. Well, let's say my production starts here. 1, 2, 3, 3.5. But it also fits. It just now happened to me so randomly, at random, that I entered the width and height of my production into this leaf. That is, I know from here that okay, the width suits me. This is the width I take, and then I measure everything with this width. For example, there is a width of times, how many times it fits right now in this bottle. In other words, we are constantly moving from the general to the particular, from large sizes to small sizes. And then already in this rectangle on your composition, and you on your sheet, as I just did on my sheet, transfer from the picture. And for example, there is a width. How much width? Yes, I also take this distance, the width of a large bottle, and measure 1, 1, and 8. That is, this width of the middle vessel fits 1 whole 8 dozen in the width of a large vessel, right? So I take it in my picture, in my work, on my sheet. I'm kind of showing you an example from here right now, as if this is my reference, right? I did the same thing from a computer monitor, measured how many times where I fit. The same can be done with nature. If you have a little bit of it there, it will be more difficult, but it is possible. On an outstretched arm, we close one eye, we take the tip of the pencil like this, the index finger like this, the elbow is always straight, and we measure exactly how many times some segment fits in another segment. Let me tell you more about it now. That means 1 and 8. So we take it here and measure it. Well, it may even be more convenient to turn it over. 1 and 8 is about where I'm going to end up. That is, I know that this distance will be the width of a large one. That is, here I have, in fact, this is the topmost bottle. This is this vessel a little lower, as you see here. So it means I have it a little lower. It means that I will have this wide bottle, although it is not the highest, low. I see it going down a little bit lower, so somewhere my bottle will be right here. And in this way, by drawing 3 such rectangles first. Yes, here you will have one bottle, one rectangle, the second bottle, the second rectangle, and the third bottle turns out to be the third rectangle. First of all, my friends, your work should look like this. On your sheet, your work should look like this. I'm just telling you a few words about building a bottle now. In general, this lesson is more focused on hatching. How to stroke the glass, how to suck it out of it like this so that it glitters, like in this job. But still, I consider it my long duty to say a little about the construction. Then what do we do? Now that you have drawn these 3 rectangles, please write in the comments, I will ask you very much, which is not clear, so that I know how to build my explanation for the future of my work. What is unclear here, write, do not hesitate, there are no stupid questions. I will answer all questions for sure. Then we divide these distances in half. Each of these bottles is in half. We draw, this is called the central axis. We start all the rotation figures and constructions. In fact, now I don't call it a construction. These rectangles are just sketches. It's just some kind of markup. And then, we are already doing exactly the central axis. And as you noticed, when I was building, I was constantly measuring. That's what we need them for. That's just the same for symmetry, so that you see, I built the central axis at such a turning point. This is not the thickest part. This is exactly where we have these bends going. There can be as many of these horizontal lines as you like. Because then, if we doubt, not later, but if we doubt that our right part is not symmetrical, and I had at one point, when I had just the same in this bottle, I looked like that, the right part seemed to me not symmetrical to the left. I drew a straight line and started measuring like this, and there can be as many of these lines as you want. The more lines there are, the more accurate your construction will be, but you don't dig into them too much. You don't need a lot of them right at all. That is, we drew a straight line, and then we measure so that the right part is symmetrical, equal to the left. And it is this central axis that helps us to build an object of any shape or build a vase. If, for example, we have some kind of complicated Moroccan vase there with such a profile, then of course we will have more of these straight lines here. And in this case we will measure to this distance was equal to this distance was equal to this distance, and so on. In this way, my friends, we can transfer any bends from right to left and make an exact copy, an exact symmetry. That's it. Well, that's all. To be honest, I took these moments by eye. For example, yes, where we end up with the main one, the main volume of the bottle, and the neck begins. But if you have problems with this, you take, for example, this width in the same way. If you want to know the exact distance directly, you measure the width, see how many times it fits up to this neck. Then at your work, you also take your work, measure this width. For example, there 2 times or 2.5. 1, 2, well, there's about 2.5, let's say, and you know that I will have a neck on this one, at this level, from the bottom or from the top. And in the same way, here are any distances you can already build. The width you can take this height, you can take this height, and so on. So friends, and now we need to stroke the glass. Well, what do I want to tell you? You need to forget that these are bottles, that they have some volume, and just take a picture of this bottle with your own eyes. See what's in it. There are a lot of interesting things in it. In fact, the bottle is a kind of simplified form of a mirror, a curved mirror, which changes the shape of the object in the reflection. Yes, remember, there used to be such laughter rooms, I do not know. Now there are probably also mirrors that narrow or stretch. Each of these bottles is essentially the same mirror that the object distorts in its form. For example, a window. As you can see, you can probably even draw a room based on what we have reflected in these 3 bottles. At a minimum, we see that there are 2 windows in this room. Yes, and look, here's the window, here's this one. It bends, repeating, it's gone into perspective there. Here, of course, it narrows, and this is a highlight on the bottle. This is the window. Here, we also have a window reflected, a table reflected, and this metal curved one in a bottle reflected. And the bottle, in fact, it sucks in all the reflections, absorbs them, but it reflects them in its form. Here, all the bends are reflected in their shape. What other feature of bottles? If you look, for example, at the center of the bottle and its periphery, these are the edges. In other words, you understand that, as if I have one bottle right now, I'm going to take it and show it to you. But the truth is, this bottle is her. Yes, it has some kind of tone, it's all scratched up here, but I want to say that if we look here, there's even a reflection of my hand through the bottle. A clearer pattern is reflected in the center, or a clearer pattern is illuminated. Yes, it's not reflected, and I wanted to say that my hand shines through better. And look at what's going on around the edges. At the edges of the bottle, here we no longer see the reflection of the hand. Here we also do not see it. Here they are somehow smeared. Why is this happening? Because here we look at glass, and it's like thin glass. Here is thin glass. Here is thin glass. And on the sides, imagine we have here, if we even look at the hand here, that is, it will be 1 in thickness. And when we have it, it means that the thickness here is thicker glass, and it's nothing anymore. This is the glass around the edges, and here and here. This also applies to these parts, because there is thicker glass here, and here too. They are thick at the edges. That is, there is a bottom. Along the entire edge of the bottle, it is denser, thicker glass. Here, due to the fact that we see the sidewalls, and with this in mind, that is why we no longer see any reflection in the edges of the bottle, and there are no certain transparencies. Here everything is smoothed out, and here we only draw, well, glass. And usually, as a rule, the bottle darkens, often darkens towards the edges, especially if it is dark glass, if it is such a green, dark green bottle, dark purple bottle. Look, attention, here in fact all the bottles are transparent, here it is less visible, but more of those that have the color of glass, even more edges of bottles, and the base of the bottle and the top of the bottle. Here you can see even on this bottle, it is even more darkened. Then I want to say this moment, if I don't remember which artists, well, Michelangelo, who taught in ancient times, if you read about how they taught their students. The students came, so the teacher put on a production for them, and for the first 3 hours they just looked at it. Of course, I'm not asking you to sit for 3 hours and watch, but there is a certain kind of logic and essence in this, because when an ordinary person, how does he see an object? Sees the bottle. He sees the bottle, right? And the artist, he looks at the bottle and sees, according to the colors, even if a person usually says, here's a green bottle, we'll say turquoise here, ochre here, blue rabbit here, with a steering wheel here, and we see many, many, many shades in it. What do I want to say specifically with bottles and specifically with observation? It's as if you're looking at it with your own eyes. I have this sitting in my head. I don't know how to convey it exactly right now. You draw some kind of grid and you look at each square. For example, what's there? What is there in this square now? In other words, you try as much as possible to convey what you see, to go straight into this bottle with your eyes, to find as many details as possible. What do I want to say? Glass is glass and begins to shine when it glitters. You understand why it glitters because of glare. Yes, then we'll use an eraser to wipe these highlights. Draw them. There is such a thing as drawing with an eraser. I have already told you once. Here, and everything else, this transparency, where does it come from? From the fact that the bottle, the glass, from the fact that objects shine through other objects. Here you can see how it shines through. Here, by the way, we have water. Yes, it's interesting. And pay attention. Water. That a bottle is visible above the water. That big green bottle is translucent, but here the water is dense, it overlaps, and we no longer see this through, well, we do not see this transparency. But in this bottle, for example, here comes the table, and as objects we have, as we have glass distorts objects. Then where does he disappear to? No, it doesn't disappear, it goes, but it bends a little in the bottle. Pay attention, the table is translucent, and here we even observe such a reddish color, such an ochre of some kind. It is clear with an admixture of green, and then it goes on. And if you draw a drapery, for example, and you have a bottle on the drapery, if there was some kind of drapery, it would be visible through the bottle. Of course, there is a bottle of this nature. Yes, they are transparent here. If we had a bottle of densely green color, it would hardly be translucent, although it may be. Well, it depends on what degree of color density is in the bottle. But it wouldn't just show through. Here comes the drapery once, and then it goes. No, not like that. Here in these parts, it would be distorted, and it can somehow distort the reflection. Yes, that's how it shines through here, but it doesn't go straight to the table, and it is distorted in the bottle. That's your task, my friends, to see everything reflected in the bottle. It's to convey, draw, and see all the distortions. And such a cherry on the cake will be that at the end, when we are completely finished, we will take a white eraser. This eraser, it's just terrible, to be honest. I mean in shape. We usually cut off the erasers. Let me show you right now how we cut erasers. We have such a concept. I have at least a cropping eraser or sharpening an eraser when an eraser. That is, you see, and now the tip is sharp, and now we can do a lot with this tip. I actually suffered. I just had to do it like that. And with such an eraser, you can already put glare. Then we'll take it carefully here. We'll put a blick at the end. We'll put a blick here, somewhere here, and so on. Well, that's it, my good one. I'm starting to stroke. Look, in the comments, please ask your questions. So, I start hatching. And right away I drew a window on the left side, and as you can see, my hatching is in shape, especially when I'm hatching the edges of the bottle. We have the edges of the bottle. The bottom of the bottle is in shape in the center. Because there are different objects there now I'm going to draw, my hatching can already change. The hatching may change. And we do not concentrate on one subject. We do not fixate on one subject constantly in different directions. We have a pencil running around our work. We have a little bit of one bottle, we take on another. The other one was shaded, we take on the third one, and so on. We never get hung up on one subject so as not to overdarken it, and so that there is a degree. Constantly we had a degree of comparison, but as you can see, I'm not picking up a strong tone at the beginning. That is, I get quite pale enough. I'm already working with a pencil, and then I'll take 3Bs, and of course, in 3B pencil, I'll press with all my might. I turn to the third bottle. I also lightly sketch the hatching. Look, friends, I'm putting a leaf under my arm. This is not so that your hand is clean. In order, first of all, that your work is clean, I strongly recommend that you do exactly the same, because if we do not put a sheet under your hand, then our work gets very dirty, and dirt already appears, which we do not need. Each bottle reflects the room. It plays a little role. That's who has a peephole in the house. And as if when we look through the peephole, he takes all the objects around and rounds them up a little bit, you know. That's the same way a bottle is a reflection. It mirrors, absorbs almost the entire room. Every one of them, right? 2 windows are reflected in each bottle, if you look closely. I slightly dipped all 3 vessels into the tone, after which I switched to. Here, by the way, I already have a pencil, 3B, already on other subjects, and I begin to strengthen other subjects. You know, when you draw a bottle, I also recommend getting up at least once every 20 minutes and looking at the level, at some distance, what you got, and comparing it with what is in kind on your production. Sometimes we cling to objects too much and start doing excessive detailing in the bottle, and the contrast of the objects of the bottle itself. Anyway, do not forget that this bottle is worth it. First of all, that it is glass. But this problem is her. I'm just looking at my work right now, and it may seem that I find too much of everything there in this glass. But you know, this problem is easily solved. You can just take a pencil as much, well, not necessarily as much. You need to look at the situation and cover it with a monotonous layer from above, and just mute it all as a whole. You know, at the end, I'm just like that, such a highlight, when we take an eraser and start erasing the glare. And also, when we draw bottles, it's very nice here. It would be very nice to take a nag. I just didn't find a nag this time. That's how it happened that she wasn't there. And a few vertical, literally a couple of such lines with a nag to remove from top to bottom, so that the pike is wiped, so that there are two strips that are not straight white, as if we took an eraser, but just to remove the tone. They would be very welcome here. Unfortunately, I didn't have a nag, and I tried to do the same thing, only with an eraser. But you know, it's probably better than if I didn't do it at all, but it's still better to have a nag for this case. So, I immerse myself in the tone. Well, as I said, I try to take a closer look at the objects. This is the problem, as I said, the details in the bottle that I do, it rarely happens. Often, novice draftsmen have another problem, that they, on the contrary, do not reach, that they simply take and stroke the bottle as an object like plaster. So it's better to take a closer look, right? Look, delve into it, find some elements, and try to convey them in a bottle. But gradually I'm gaining. My bottle will now gradually darken, and the whole production will darken. I pay little attention to the rest of the subject in this job. There they are. I'm going to draw a little pebble, but I'm not going to work it out, because this particular lesson is dedicated to hatching bottles and not everything else. But I will slightly depict a pebble and this piece of iron. I repeat again, hatching can be completely in different directions. As you can see, I have a pencil straight, and so it works in different directions. The main thing is that you're hatching. This applies in general to everything that you are hatching. It did not slide into painting. Still, if you look closely, it will be exactly the stroke. It won't be such a dense painting. That's the kind of job I get. Look carefully now. There will be an accelerated shooting, but I'll take an eraser and wipe everything a little. Not everything is unnecessary. I will slightly make these little strokes with an eraser, so to speak, small, which will give a big glassy object like this. And after that, of course, we take an eraser and wipe the glare in the bottom bottle. There are several highlights there. I said in the bottom, in the middle bottle. I meant at the bottom. From above, you can see this left window. It shines very actively in all three vessels. You can also walk it with a little eraser. Friends, thank you very much for watching this video. Please write down what you liked, what you didn't like, what was useful, what wasn't, and in general your wishes about academic drawing and further lessons. It is your feedback, your comments, that will help me to make lessons further. You know, if you still have nothing to write at all, then I would be very pleased if you put at least any emoticon in the comments. This will help promote this video on YouTube, and I will be very pleased. You know, be sure to watch the following video on painting. I have prepared a very, very interesting picture there, which we will draw together with you. It will be such a winter landscape, and you know, I deliberately chose a landscape that everyone will be able to do. You'll be fine with it. So well, my green bottle is getting darker, 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 but in general, I would probably darken it even more. Here I am watching now, because my video is already coming to an end. And, in general, probably, if there was a nag, I took off the whole average bottle a little bit. This is what you see now. This is a good basis for further work. If you did it that way, that's how it turned out to draw bottles. Then you can, and if you want to lighten the average bottle, please remove the tone with a nag. Make a nag with a sausage. Remove the tone. It will be more white, because they are now still arguing a little bit in tone very similar to each other. Either it was necessary to darken the leftmost one, this vessel should be darkened, but please, this can also be done without spoiling this glassiness, so to speak, this glass effect. Well, now I take an eraser and try to take it off a little bit, show the glass even more of a nag. It would be a bomb in general. That is, keep the nag always at hand when hatching bottles. It really helps a lot. Well, I use an eraser to remove glare. That's the kind of job I got. Thank you very much for watching and waiting for your comments, friends.